strap on in, comrades. We're here for a long one. This is Atelier Iris, number 2, Azoth of Destruction, I want to say. It was pretty good. I actually like this one quite a bit better than the last one. The first Atelier Iris, it had its moments, but the gameplay and generally like having to repeat like multiple areas like multiple times and having to meander about the world so much really kind of like dragged, not gonna lie. And like after the 45th time I had to go to the sewer, like, bro, I'm like, come on, man. So with this one, it's much more of like a world that you can traverse. It's not like Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest traverse. There's like nodes. But there's like lines going to these nodes and you can just like very quickly get around once you've unlocked like a pathway or whatever. So that makes it a lot easier. And then you really don't repeat areas too much. There's like the different kind of like hub areas that you kind of go back to. And then there's Eden. Eden is where you start the game, and it is like the alchemist hub, and it's where, so there's two kind of main characters. So there's like Felt, he's the main character, and then there's Viese, and she is like the secondary also main character / love interest of Felt. But this is like a Japanese anime game from like, this is like a shonen anime game from like, I don't know when this came out, like 2000s, I think, like early 2000s. It's a PlayStation 2 game, I want to say. And so, you know, the romance is like hinted at or like spoken of, and like people, you know, talk about it, and there's like a little bit of fan service, but, you know, it doesn't really go anywhere. It's like all implied kind of stuff, right? Because the Japanese are very like independent and private culture. So even in their art, they respect that, unless you're getting like the hentais. The way it plays out, it's very similar to the previous game in that you have characters. As you get characters, they all have weapons. You can like upgrade the weapons into various aspects. In the other game, you'd buy new weapons. In this one, and then you could get like the Mana Forge, and the Mana Forge system like sucked. It really was not very good and well implemented in my opinion, so I barely engaged with it. I kind of engaged with it right at the end of the game just to get myself faster, because that last boss is like, holy shit. But the last boss in this game, I mean, that game, I like dumped 8 hours into the game, and then my computer got erased, and so I had to redo it, and I was like, I'm going to cheat this time just to like speed things up. This time around, I did not cheat at all, and I was able to very easily just kind of get through it with like a minimal amount of grind. Now, I assume there's a post-game, as there are in most of these games, that I have absolutely no interest in engaging in, so I didn't. But that might require a little bit more grinding, and I did grind, but I grind in like the fun way you can do with emulators, where you just put everything at like 3 times speed, and so the game just like kind of cruises by. So I think in total, the game tracked me as playing somewhere around like 30 hours to get through this thing, and I didn't really do a lot of side content. Like I did a little bit here and there. I engaged with like the crafting mechanic a little bit, not really like that intensely. And so, yeah, so I would say like, if you're really cruising through this thing, you could easily get through it in like 20 hours or so. I might have had an extra 10 hours slapped on there just from like, you know, having it on like triple speed while I went to like go check on my baby or whatever while I was like playing, and other such things. So, okay, so everyone has a weapon equipped. At some point early on in the game, you unlock forging, and then you can use like alchemist items and certain manas to like upgrade. The nice addition to this game is like the Final Fantasy IX thing that more people are familiar with, where you equip something, and if after you get like AP, I can't remember what they call it in this game, it's like SP. And if you, after you gather so much like SP, you like master the ability from the item that you're equipped, whether it's the weapon. And the weapons you can like upgrade and degrade and go up and down, so you can master all these different abilities, and there's different pathways. And so you can spend a lot of time like getting all these extra abilities. And then there's also, they call it equipment in this game, but equipment is just like random alchemist bullshit that you can equip onto characters, and that can also give them like other passive and active abilities. Usually it's passive, so that's fun. Then there's also 2 accessory, so you can equip 2 equipments, and then you can, there's 2 accessories, and accessories are more like traditional like armor, essentially. Like literally it'll be like dragon shield and like voodoo mask or something, right? Or like elven cloak, or, you know, fairy cap, or stuff like that. And those just give you like temporary stat boosts. None of them that I saw ever allowed you to like master anything. Okay. So then Felt is an alchemist, but he's like a quote-unquote bad alchemist. So Vise has to do most of the alchemy work. Once she like discovers an alchemy recipe, then she can share it. There's a mechanism in this game. It's not even a mechanism. It's more like a story bit where there's a ring. So the story starts off. I'm going to get a little into the plot just so I can explain this concept, and then we'll get really into it. So at the start of the game, Vise becomes like an official alchemist, and then I forget the guy's name. It's like Klaus. He seems like very important at the beginning of the game, and then it's like he kind of like disappears from the story for most of the rest of it. But I think it's something like Klaus. He is like the master of Eden, and he's the head of like the alchemists group. And Eden is like this floating like island chain that has like all the mana live there, and then like these alchemists live there as well. And it's very like ideal and beautiful, and there's no monsters or any concerns or whatever. But anyway, so Vise at the very beginning of the game becomes an alchemist, and then Kraus gives her a ring, and it's like the shared ring, and we quickly find out that this ring, it's two rings. She gives one to Felt, and then she keeps one. It's very like Shining Wind. No, Shining Wind was the second one. I don't remember. It was one of those Shining games. And then because they share the ring, they can like share their inventory, and so she can discover like alchemic-y stuff, like building like crafts or bombs or healing items like elixirs and stuff. And then when she discovers how to do it with the mana, then she can share like that concept with Felt, and then he can make like more of the item, right? And then Felt has the ability to use alchemy to like smith better weapons and whatnot. And only Vise can create like equipment and accessories using alchemy. Felt can't. But they share like, so if Felt goes and gets like mana, or he goes and gets like items in the world or recipes, they share them back and forth. And then throughout the game, there's this whole cute thing where they send letters back and forth to each other explaining like what happened from their perspective, which, you know, I read through those like super quick because I literally just fucking played the game. So I know exactly what happened. But it's nice to see like more personalized, you know, it's like a cute mechanic in the game, or like a cute little thing they do. Okay, so at every save point you can switch between Vise. And Vise has like her own story going on up in Eden, while Felt is like doing the main story. So you want to go back and forth a bit, and it allows her to like unlock more things, like more manas, and do side quests for people up there, and learn more about the world and more about the Azoth, which is kind of like one of the main things here. And then Felt has, you know, he meets like friends and fights, and then eventually Vise is able to join like the rest of the crew. And then you have two alchemists in your party. So while you're fighting, everyone has like two attacks. There's regular attack, which is called the charge attack because it charges like your charge meter. And so there's no like MP in this game, or SP or TP or whatever. What they have is you have this meter, and every time someone does a charge attack, it charges the meter. And then special abilities all cost like, it's like a fighting game, right? You like charge that special meter, and then you can do like more powerful attacks. It's like that, and they all share it. So you can have like two characters like doing regular charge attacks, because then you have Fee, who's the strongest fighter in this game, as in she does the most damage, do like her super attack that costs like 3 charges or whatever, and she just beats the shit out of things, which is what I did for most of the game. And she pretty much like single-handedly killed the final boss, because I'd have like Felt healing and buffing, and then I had this character Gray, which we'll get to later. He was like mostly doing charge attacks. It's just like build charge gauge, and he's like a tank. He just has like a lot of life and defense, and so I just had him in the front, just like taking hits for the most part. But and when you get hit, your charge meter goes up too. And then you have break attacks. Break attacks, there's like another little bar. So the combat's actually pretty fun for like a JRPG specifically, because, you know, again, it's like, so you have this meter over here you're trying to charge up to get special ability attacks. Felt and Vise, when she finally joins, they can like craft mana stuff, and then anybody can use like the items, and the items are all mana items. There's no like mana items and non-mana items, but that like reduces it. But when they craft in battle, it just costs like the mana that you have saved up. So it gives you more flexibility, but you can only have like 99 of each mana. And so like I spent a lot of the game like with like most of my mana like maxed out, because I was just like cruising through the thing and not really making that much stuff. But like I'd get like a new recipe for like a new bomb or a new attack, and such. And so then I'd make a bunch of those just so I could get like more mana, because it's like otherwise mana's just sitting there doing nothing, and I don't even use most of that stuff. The ones I did use is you can get periodic like summons, essentially. Like you can summon like a thundercloud, you can summon this like there's like a Cerebus summon that I never got, but it was like available. I just didn't find the mats for it or whatever. And then there was this dragon, so I summoned like the dragon or the thundercloud, and they would just keep taking turns. They'd have their own like, so the bar there's a bar on the top left of the screen, and that indicates like who's going to go next. And so, you know, people move up and down on this bar, and so one way to move people back is to use break attacks. And if you break them into like the far left side of the bar, then they slow down and they become very weak, as in like it's like a debuff, like a defensive debuff, so they take a lot more damage. And then, you know, you can kind of break people back. You can't break them forever. Eventually they'll just overcome like the breaking and then move forward to do their attack. And then they also can cast like summon spells essentially too, that will like keep cycling and whatnot in addition to that. But then like you get more experience and more like SP is what they call like your special points for like building up mastery in like these skills with your equipment. If you do combos while you're in combat, then you get like a higher you get like a percentage boost to like your experience points and your SP. And the way to do combos is to break people. So as long as someone's broken and you do an attack, it will add on to the combo. So you can like break somebody and then break like a different guy in the battlefield, and it just maintains that continuous combo. So that's pretty fun too. That's a good mechanic to engage with, and that helps with the grinding as well, because if you just like do pretty much all break attacks while you're like grinding, you will get like these huge boosts. Well, not huge, but you'll get like these moderate boosts in like experience points. But it's like, instead of like for every like 2 battles you fight, it's worth like 3, 3.5, 4, depending on how big your combo can get. So that's that mechanic. Let me think if there's anything else. I mentioned the overworld, and we'll get into like the story stuff, but I think that's the gist of it. There's like a lot of shit out in the world, just like all these Atelier games. So when you kill, there's no like in Iris 1, when you attacked, there was like a very specific, I think just whenever the main character attacked, he would sometime, and he killed something, he would get like mana from that. So that's the same. So Felt and VSA still do that. It's not like brought up at all. I feel like it's almost just like assumed. Like this game has like no tutorials. It does, but compared to like Iris 1 was like a tutorial every like 5 minutes. I don't remember any tutorials. So I know there were some, but it was just like, okay, I know how to play this game. This is like some game in this series, and it's not that much different. So I'd kind of like casually glance at it. But then the letters they'd send back and forth, they'd kind of explain stuff, and I feel like that was a better way to do this. But there definitely were. I don't remember, but I'm like positive there was like a couple times where it like paused to like do stuff, to like kind of more readily explain stuff. But really, it stopped like after pretty early on in the game. It didn't really come up again. Yeah, so there's stuff in the world that you just hit it with, and there's not like different attacks, right? There's not like 500 different things you can do with summoning manas, which got really annoying real quick. This is literally like, you have a jump button and you have an attack button in the kind of like field. And then sometimes if an item can be interacted with using a different alchemical item, then there'll be like an X button. So like, I think square was to like bash, and then circle is to jump, if I remember. And then X would show up sometimes because like you would get like fertilizers, and you could use the fertilizers or miracle growth on certain plants, and then they would give you like an item instead of like just giving you mana, or they'd turn into like more concentrated mana, so you'd get even more mana because like there's the concentrated manas. And then there'd be like things that got in your way occasionally, and so if you pressed X on those, if you had the correct kind of bomb, you'd be able to blow your way through those and open up passages and stuff like that. And then you could get like hammers, so like there would be like metal deposits, and so you could just bash the metal deposits and get the mana. Or if you use the hammer, you could get like the item, like the silver red lingen or whatever they call them in this game, like the metal materials. And then there was like some other, there's like, I think there's only one like world. So there's the bombs to blow up past areas that are blocked. That was the one gatekeep. And then the second gatekeep was like you get this hook shot like midway through the game. And so there's certain like cliffs you can't go up unless you have a hook shot, and then use that. And then there's like a glow lamp that lets you see in the dark, but you really just use it like one time in VSA's like portion of the game. They like go into like an area and look something up. But I think that's it. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Yeah, the miracle growth, stuff like that. Yeah, okay. I think that's it for the game mechanics and such. But the game like flows. It's pretty straightforward. it's super linear, I would say. Like, you can kind of, there's like one or two times where it's like, oh, do you want to go to this or this first? But you're going to do both those things. So it's really kind of like semantics at that point. I'm just like, whatever, let's go do that. The villains are kind of like meh, but I like most of the characters. It's interesting because like the first character that Felt meets, this annoying chick, she seems like she's going to be super important at the beginning of the game. She even has like a little thing in like the intro montage. But then, like, pretty quickly, she gets, like, really sidelined as, like, one of the least important characters in your main crew. Like, because there's Felt, VAC eventually, right? She's, like, always a part of the main cast, but she doesn't join, like, the party to, like, be a fighter to, like, almost the end of the game. There's Noin, who is, like, very important at the beginning, and then, like, I forgot she was able to give into my party at some point because she has like no story relevance whatsoever. There's Gray, who's super important. He's the dragon guy who's like the tank. There's Fee, who's super important, and there's like whole sections of the game where it's just you and her, and Gray, and they're the best team, hands down. And then there's Poe, and Poe is kind of shitty. Maybe I just didn't build him correctly, but I just never felt like he did much. But he's like the comic relief character, and he is like always popping into stories, and like he is like his portion of like the main story plot is like completely essential for like stuff happening. So he comes up all the time. He's always making commentary and stuff. And so Noin is really the only one who kind of gets like left on the sidelines. Like, and it's quick too. Like you show up. Oh, I'll get to it. We'll get to the main story. So I think that's everything, but it was just kind of funny. So aside from Noin, who is kind of hot, and then she has like a makeover scene, which makes her even hotter. Outside of that, it's like, and outside the first like maybe like 3 hours of the game, it's like she was like completely irrelevant to like the main story after that, which is pretty funny. All right, let's get into the plot then. So just like in the first game, you get this like really prolonged introduction with various things occurring. We start with a strange man standing next to like the Sleeping Beauty character. He then walks off, and we jump over to this like sexy bitch, this is Noin, who running away from a bunch of knights on a bridge, and there's like rain, and it's like super epic. She then gets concerned about a guy named Max, who is standing off in the distance talking about the revolution falling apart. She runs back to grab him, and then they run off. We then see the captain of the guard, this Galahad guy. He's insinuating some sort of blockade or something. We then jump over to like this purple-haired girl with like peak character design, who's standing in front of a door, just standing there, and then she like runs off. And then a guy standing next to this machine that's burning. There's a little girl standing on a platform mentioning that she can hear it. And then we get the title screen, and we get text about alchemy again, about how Lilith, who's the mana of creation, and how she's like in charge of alchemy, or like the head mana, or some crazy nonsense like that, or whatever. And then we jump to Cruz and VAC. And this is where VAC is like graduating from like alchemy training into being like a full alchemist. They talk about Cruz as like the leader of this place, and that the place is called Eden. He then gives her the share ring. Oh, that's what it's called, the share ring. Yeah. So pretty straightforward what that does. And there's a whole thing about how nobody knows what it does, and maybe she'll figure it out or whatever. But this is like his gift to her for being such a good student or whatever, and that maybe she could give one of the rings. It's 2 rings. She can give one of the rings to someone special. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Not him, obviously, but Felt. We then take over. VSA runs around. We talk to a bunch of people here in Eden, and then on her way out of like this temple area, like the headquarters of Eden or whatever, we get some more text about mana elements, about Lilith, about the creation mana, and about how all alchemists can make things out of elements with the assistance of mana. We then learn about Felt, who is the boy who lives with VSA. And also how he's an alchemist, and that he has more natural talent than VSA, but he's lazy and doesn't give a fuck. So he's much less interested in all that kind of shit. We eventually head back to the home that they share, and VSA is looking for Felt so they can celebrate and talk about all their good stuff and whatnot, but he's not there because he went over to like, I don't know how to say this, the Belkued Gate, which is closed, and supposedly it leads to like a whole different world away from Eden, but it's not like that it's closed right now, it's that it's like hasn't been open in like hundreds of years or something. VSA then wanders over, and we talk about to Felt about the Azoth sword, which is this like sword in the stone kind of thing, about how he wants to go on adventures, and his like lack of interest in all things alchemy, and that he just wants to go be an adventurer and be like a teenage boy, obviously. The two then join up, and we head to a nearby forest area so Viese can make a pact with the wood element, or the wood mana. And the wood mana, just like in the last game, is just the fairies from like the previous Salberg group of games. And so at this point, we do get, I wrote it down. We get some tutorials about using items, elements, all that kind of stuff, all the stuff in the first game. And then eventually, there's like this strange thing occurs, and let's see, we get, not that doesn't happen yet. So as we pass the Azoth sword, Felt talks about wanting to pull it out and how he feels drawn to it and all this stuff, and so he tries to yank it out, but he can't. And as they walk off, there's a ruby inside the Azoth sword that starts to glow mysteriously. So they get to the giant tree, and this is where Dour, the wood mana, lives. And so Viese makes a pact so that she can now synthesize elements on her own and all that stuff. And then as they're walking back out of there, there's a huge earthquake that occurs, and several large areas disappear, including this, like in these surrounding islands, like where these mana live and whatnot. And the Dour tree also disappears, and it's like, holy shit. So they rush back to Cruz, but on the way, he hears like a voice in his head, and the voice is like, pick up the sword. And so he's like, got it. So he goes and pulls the sword, and this time he's successful, and he grabs the Azoth out. The sword is the one who's talking to him, obviously, and so the sword talks to Felt about how the sword is the guardian of Eden, and that it, is activated when there's like a time of need. And then he mentions that we need to use the gate to go down to the rest of the earth and cure the problem that is affecting Eden. DSA doesn't hear any of this shit. She's like, you okay, buddy? What's going on over there? So we go to Cruz to talk about what's going on, and we learn that a bunch of this is where we learn all the places that have been affected. There's been a lot of damage. And the three of them talk about the sword, and everything else has occurred. Cruz tells Felt to keep the sword and check out the gate. First we're at home, so we can talk to some more people about what's going on and all that stuff. And then we head over to the gate, and the sword is like, finally, let's get out of here. Let's open this portal up. So as we're about to open the portal, this strange hologram comes out and talks about the Gardo and how we need to go to the Gardo, and that will fix everything and whatnot. And then Viese talks about how she needs to go back and check in with Cruz, and that she's going to kind of man the fort here and take care of things while he goes down. And this is where, let's see, Felt's going to go down, and then But Viese is like, well, before you go, let me help you out. So she goes and makes some like healing potions and stuff for him. And this is where we learn that we get a tutorial about synthesizing at the cauldron, because the cauldron is where we actually have to make items the first time, and then we can just make them from our item button in like the inventory button. And then she gives him the ring as well, and then he takes off, and she has like a good cry, and then we have like an opening movie with a bunch of like random bullshit. Felton wakes up, he like appears in a desert landscape, and he's like, holy shit, it's desolate and hot as shit out here. So we run around, kill some things, get some tutorials about combat. After a little bit, he collapses, and then he's found by this like Chaos guy, who's the guy from the beginning with like the Sleeping Beauty. And the Chaos is with some other guards, and they're like, what should we do with that scat? He's like, fucking ignore him, let him die. Weak ass. But that's okay, because Felt wakes up later, and he's been rescued by the sexy rebel girl from the beginning of the game, which is annoying. And as he tries to leave, the girl stops him and is like, the fuck you doing? And he's like, well, I'm looking for Gardo, and I need to go to someplace, and there's like, find out what that is and like understand. And he brings up Eden, and she's like, I don't know shit all about Eden or Gardo, but there's a nearby town. It's like Tatalia or something. So we team up, I wrote it down, Tatalian. And so we go there to speak to the chief. We learn that this place used to be independent, but that this empire or whatever took it all over and has been ruling it like very poorly, this whole area. We also learn that Noin is a member of the resistance. The chief tells her that their traditional holy site has been taken over by the military, and asks Felt and Noin if they can like clear that out for them. We also meet Mitsue, she's like a hot cat girl with like some massive cleavage, and you're like, dope, this is awesome. But she actually is like important to the story later on, but right now she just like, it functions as a merchant, so she just sells shit and whatnot. And there's like a whole town of these sexy cat girls, so like based. We head to the temple north of the crossroads here, so that, and once we get there, we see Chaos, so we hide, and he's all pissed off that the Imperials can't get past some door or something. So we go in, we explore around a bunch, and find a bunch of Imperials standing in front of like a aforementioned door. They notice us, we get into a fight, and then we learn about magic attacks and stuff, and then we learn about, like, it's just like some more combat tutorials. So after we beat the shit out of them, we approach the door, and again, the hologram girl from before shows up, and she's like, go to Atelier Church, where the Gardo is waiting, and then she calls Felt the Azoth Master, and that we learn that this Noin's like, oh, I've heard of that church or something. It's like across the sea. So like the Empire is like centered across the sea, and they came over here to like this area and took it over, and so that's why it's causing some like hurt feelings and whatnot. Felt's like, what's a sea? And she's like, the fuck are you talking about? And she's like, it's like water. And he's like, oh, like a river, I can swim across that. And she's like, no, probably not. Let's go back to talk to Chief first, and we can figure out what to do. And so they talk about that for a bit, take a nap, hippopotamus. Back at the Chief, we learn that Max has been captured because a bunch of the members of, like, the Silthers, or whatever the fucking call this rebellion. I'm just going to call it the rebellion. The rebellion were captured, and so Max, who's the leader of the rebellion, like, traded himself into the Imperials for that, to rescue all the things. And so Noin gets, like, freaked out and runs off to save the day. But we stop her and mention that, like, hey, we'll come help you some more. And she's like, oh, that's so sweet, thank you so much. So on the way, like, there's this huge sandstorm that, like, picks up. So we take a little nap, hippopotamus, in the tent. We talk about the Empire, and we talk about our friends are doing, and then we rest. At this juncture, we jump back over to VA Safe for the first time. And she's looking at the ring and notices some writing on it. And she sees this, she's like, oh, I've seen this writing in the library before. So she wants to go learn how to read it so she can figure out what this thing does. So she heads there, and we see this, like, fun-looking fairy character who is Poe, we find out later, but he's like, who's this beautiful maiden? I want to be with her. And so he starts, like, stalking her a bit. Nothing creepy, guys, just, like, a little bit of stalking here and there. Didn't hurt nobody. So anyway, let's see, she gets away before Visa can approach her. Oh, then we see, like, the little girl from the opening, like, montage, and Visa's like, hello, do I know you? I've never seen you before. And then the girl, like, runs off, and it's like, okie dokie. Over at the library, the door is locked, so we have to go talk to the dark mana Lutarius so she can open it up for us because she's the library keeper. And we go back in town, we get a key, we head to the library. Inside, she finds a book with the writings so she can learn how to translate stuff. And when she's able to do that, she heads back to the workshop to work on it. Once she can, it's a couple days go by, or hours or whatever, because it's like, hypothetically, this took place while Felt was doing all his shit, and so that took like a couple days for him to like traverse the desert and like be rescued by Noin and take care of all this stuff. So while that's going on, she's busy doing all this stuff. And so we learn that we need to make a pact with the metal mana, but the metal mana will only make pacts with alchemists who are like more seasoned. And so we go talk to the metal mana. He's like, nope. So we go back to Cruz. Let's see, usually receive... Well, then at some point we run into the girl again, and we like, hey, you shouldn't be running around alone. Like, come with me, I'll take care of you. So Visa and the girl, who we find out later is Lilith, like the, what is it called in English? Like the name of the games, right? Let's see, show him the ring. Okay, so then we get permission to go see the metal mana. So we head in there, we talk to him, we show him the ring. He's like, oh, blah, 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 you can read the ring. That's very impressive. You know what? I'm going to give you like a pass, and you can go ahead and like make a pact with me, despite the fact that you're not like an elder alchemist or whatever. And so because of that, we're now able to utilize like the metal mana to activate the ring and utilize it to actually share things. At that point, the little girl leaves the party and this is where she identifies herself as Iris or Iris. Interesting. So we get more Poe antics as we head back home, and then the metal mana back at the house like explains the ring, how we can use it to communicate with Felt by passing stuff, right? Essentially, it lets you like share your inventories or whatever. So crazy magical bullshit that's making you do that. So we make some recipes that Felt found, and we send them to him along with a letter explaining what's going on. And now we can like share stuff at this. This is where we activate like the switch thing. And so Felt gets the message, and he's like, dope. At this point, we run around the desert some more until we get to the bridge that takes us to, I think it's Roosevelt. I'm just going to call it the capital from here on. So the capital. Once we get there, we get very concerned. Felt gets very concerned about entering the city, but Noin is convinced that she can flirt her way through, and she does it. So good for her. She's got a nice tit, so I can see it. It's something about... I'm trying to remember exactly what she says. She says something about favors at some like bar somewhere and giving free stuff. And the guard's like, dope, sounds good. We then enter, and as we enter, we see a mysterious girl following us from behind. Over at the bar, we meet up with Noin's contact. We learn that Max, the head of the rebellion, is being held at the palace, and that all the major players of the Empire, sans the actual Emperor, like everybody that's here doing like the Empire's business, because the Empire's like somewhere else doing whatever, are here. So that includes Galahad, Chaos, and Theodore, as well as what's her name? Essentially, we meet this chick on and off. She would never fight her or really do anything, but it is Pamela before she was dead. So in the Iris universe, it's like Thamalia or something. I don't remember. Anyway, it'll come up later in my notes, so we'll talk about it more there. But we head over there, and on the way, we overhear this conversation that some kids are having about, they're talking about how there's like a secret entrance to the lighthouse. And if that sounds delightful to you, it's not, because the lighthouse is a giant prison tower that no one has ever escaped. Anyway, so that's going to be important for later. Over at the palace, we see Max handcuffed. He gives a speech about the royal line, the royal Slythe lineage, and how the people should throw off their oppressors or something. And then Theodore and Galahad come out, and they send him over to the lighthouse, and like, this motherfucker. So we find no way to get inside, and then we go talk to the boy from earlier, and he's all bummed out because his friends don't believe him, and he talks about the secret entrance, but he won't tell it to us unless we can get some flower that like is always cold or whatever, and we're like, the fuck's that? Anyway, we need VSA's help, so we reach back out to her by sending her a little note, and she's like, okay, sounds good. So she heads out to the library to find more information about this flower or whatever, and then on the way she runs into like this little girl. And there's a few more times that we're able to get, we go around and we talk to people, and we finally figure out that there's this thing called Miracle Grow that we need to create. I think the flower is the Huffin flower, so we can then take it over to like Doors Forest and use it to get like a Huffin flower, because like they exist here in Eden, but they're like out of season. And then there's some like other shenanigans involving the Wanda Mana needing like milk or something. But after we give her milk, she then agrees to make a contract with us so that we can make the Miracle Grow, so then we can go get the flower, and then we can send it back. And then Felt gets it and takes it over to this kid so that he can give it to like his girlfriend or something. Anyway, at that point, he tells us that we need to go through the sewers. God fucking course. The goddamn sewers. It's okay. I think we only go through the sewers twice. And that is like into the lighthouse and out of the lighthouse. Unlike the first game where we're in the sewers like every 5 minutes. So we get in there, we work our way up through the tower in the prison, we beat up some guards, and we rescue Max, and he's got a couple companions with him. We learn at this point about equipment, and equipment is one of the things I mentioned before that lets you like, if you have it equipped, you can like master skills or whatever. That give you like passive bonuses to things like offense and defense and some other stuff like that. And so you have to have them equipped. It's the thing I referenced before that's just like Final Fantasy IX. So we finally get some, and we learn about that and whatnot. And then we're leaving, but as we're leaving, we run into Chaos and some guards, and we beat up the guards, and then Chaos recognizes the Azoth, and there's some like shenanigans there, and so we're able to like scootaloo out of there. And Chaos like watches that, and then the guards are like, should we go after him? And he's like, no, the lighthouse is Galahad's problem. I'm not worried about it. I got some other stuff to go think about and like worry about. So he does that. At some point around here, we're trying to like escape. Hold on, let's see. Okay, so when we're in the sewers escaping, there's like a discussion. The discussion is that we need to head north, and then there's a place where we can get on a boat, and then we can get on this boat, we can get out of here so Max and company can be safe, but also so we can get to the Altena Church, which is on the other side of the river, so we can use it to get to Gardo, which is over there supposedly. And Max identifies that they're, all this stuff. And then we're like, okay, but how are we going to get out? Like, everyone knows who Max is and stuff, and we're going to like sneak him out the gate by like throwing them in barrels and like rolling them across like the bridge, or like sending them in the water across the bridge, like Hobbit style. Okay. Meanwhile, Theodore and Chaos and Galahad are all talking. Actually, Theodore's yelling at Galahad and Chaos, and then Chaos starts talking about his Azoth. He is an Azoth. And then something about a plan not being able to be stopped and stuff like that, and that eventually he'll work out a way Oh, and then as we're leaving the city, before we get Max and company out of the barrels, we run into the purple-haired girl again, and she says something about the Azoth, and she gets really butthurt about that, but we like stop her from harassing us and get out of there. And we work our way through a couple different dungeons, going up along the coast here till we get to the ship cave. While that's going on, VSA and Felt continue to send letters back and forth about everything that's going on, about alchemist shit and whatnot. And then we get to the cave with the boat. We learn that it needs to be fixed up. It's pretty rough. So first thing we need to do is get some cotton sails, but to get cotton sails, we need cotton, because we don't have any cotton sails, and the cotton grows in Atelier or whatever. Oh, no, wait. I think we need cotton sheets or cotton sails. I think I call them sheets. So we got to go to Atelier, because that's where they're from, because the cotton grows out in the desert, right, like in Egypt. And so we head over there, and we get to the village, and we find out that, like, they don't have any cotton sails, but that if we got cotton, they can give us, like, we get, like, the recipe from Mitsui, that cat lady with the nice rack. Then we can use alchemy to like form that or whatnot. And so we talked to her a little bit about that and everything. And so we head out to the desert once again, but this time like the desert, like there's like oasis level in the desert, and then there's like crossroads level and like stuff. But this time we're actually going to like vast desert. And so we head out there, we get attacked by some fish monster that gives us a hard time. But then this guy, Gray, shows up, and Gray is a dragon man. He is like, he looks like a dragon man from like, you know, RPGs from this era, but also from Dungeons and Dragons. And so we chat with him about our desire to go to Altina Church, so that he decides that he's going to tag along with us. He's awesome. He is one of the best characters in the game to play, and with his story and everything. And I never stopped using him, except when a couple times you had to stop using him. And he's great. And I forgot to mention that we came out to the desert by ourselves because Noin stayed back with the rebels because she's a rebel, you know, like we're not like a full team yet. And so she leaves the party. And she does this a lot. She'll like leave the party. And I think I mentioned this at the beginning, where it's like Noin is like a key member of the party, but she's like the least of all the key members. Like she has like the least amount of screen time, the least amount of relevance, and like if she was honestly never joined the party, it would have very little relevance outside of like the first, like as of right now, like when she leaves to stay in the boat, it's like if she never rejoined the group ever again, there would be no problem with that whatsoever. That's not wholly true. I think there's still a moment where she has to like sex herself up a little bit so that we can get an item that we're going to need later on through alchemy. So with Gray's help, we find a bunch of cotton, and we use the Wonder Growth to get the cotton to be in season or whatever. We get it, we send it back to VSA so that she can turn it into cotton sheets, and then we head back to the cave. Once we're there, Gray's like, hey, it's nice to be back. It's like, oh, hey, you're part of the rebellion too? And he's like, yeah, I'm friends with all these guys. Oh, that's great. He just happened to be out wandering and doing shit. Everyone chats about stuff, and the Noin's like, dinner's ready, and Max and Gray are like, pass. And we're like, what? And she's like, Felt, you'll have some of my food, won't you? And we're like, sure. And then we pass the fuck out. Like it's like Emma from fucking Nikki Got Us a Victory kind of style. And then we learned that like some other shit in the boat's broken too, and then we need like a master craftsman / blacksmith or whatever to like fix the rudder and whatnot. And that this guy is like out at like the holy site or something, running like a smithy like in the middle of fucking nowhere, and that he won't listen to anybody. Like Gray's tried to get him to leave and come back, but like he's super stubborn and refuses. And so we're like, okay, well, let's go talk to this guy, see what we can do. So we head out there. He won't listen to Gray. He won't listen to... I think Noin has joined back at this point. No, you know what? I don't remember if she did, actually. And then we pull out the Azoth when we're there, and he's like, holy fuck, what's that? And he's like, oh, that's amazing. Sword, you know, masturbation. And then he's like, let me touch it. And the sword's like, hell no. And we're like, come on, man, we need him to come help us fix this boat. And the Azoth is like, goddamn, fine. And so he touches it, and he's like, oh, and he like has like a orgasm or whatever. And then we all head back over to the boat, and he's like, I got this fixed in no time. And also, here's how he takes us to like the little tent area that we get to set up inside our safe spot. And he puts like what's it called? Like an anvil there. And he's like, oh, let me show you how to smith weapons here. And it, like I said before, it's just like you can upgrade and then even downgrade to stronger stuff, to learn abilities, all this kind of stuff. So we go in there, we learn about that. So now we can upgrade weapons, which is great. And then finally the boat gets fixed and we head off. So at that point we jump back over to VSA so she can do some stuff with flowers and, you know, do some side quests with the people of Eden, like make a pact with the aroma mana, I think is what it was called. Who's like this hot bee lady or wasp or something. And then also there's some other NPC stuff with making... You start working with like the sonic mana or like the hearing mana, and that takes several different like times to like jump back to Eden over the course of like this. And the game's broken up in chapters. I just didn't like mark it over this like next couple of chapters so that she joins us as well. Let's see. We chat with that. Okay, so once we're at sea, we had this little scene where Noin talks about all the water, and Felt is like, "Holy shit, there's a lot of fucking water here." And she's like, "Yeah, this is what I meant. You couldn't just swim across." He's like, "Damn, yeah." And they talk about there's no water in Eden or whatnot, and clearly Noin wants to boink Felt, but he's talked so much about Visay that she kind of drops it because she knows it's like not worth it. And she comes back to this like one other time or two other times, and before she finally like gives up on the whole thing, and it just gets completely dropped. So once we land, Max talks about getting to the Altena church, but at first he wants to move in that direction to get to like their base camp and set that up. And so we head to like the Rebellion base camp, and at this point we head back over to Visay, and there's some more like side quest stuff. And this is where like the sound menace picks up, and we like help her get her groove back by encouraging her to sing and then telling her she's great at singing and all this kind of stuff. So we push back the cave, past this cave, back to Felt. We push past a cave and then a forest, and eventually run into that purple-haired girl that was tracking us, and she's all beat up and she's being attacked by like slimes or whatever. And so we rescue her, and then she's all pissed off, and she was sent by like the mother of the Altena church or something to destroy the Azoth, because the Azoth is like, the Crimson Azoth is like the bringer of destruction in all the land. And then we're like, hey, we don't have the Crimson Azoth. This is an Azure Azoth, obviously, so you're probably after something else. And she's like, I don't know. I was told Azoth, and you're right, that is not Crimson, and you seem like nice people. So if you're going to, excuse me, if you're going to the church, I'll go too, and we can kind of clear all this stuff up. And this is Fee, F-E-E. She is the best fighter in the game, hands down. Like, she has these abilities later on in the game where she strikes like 12 times or something. Like, it is out of fucking control, and I mentioned this before. So now that I have her and Gray, that's all I ever use. And there's literally like 2 or 3 times in the game where like you only have access to Gray and Fee to play with, and it's like these are obviously like the secondary main characters, while like Poe, who we haven't gotten yet, and Noin are like tertiary at best. Like, if anything, Poe is tertiary and Noin is like a non-existent character. She's essentially like a side character that's part of the main group for like the first little bit, and then I forgot she was even there. While Poe continues to have like funny moments and be like the mascot or whatever. Anyway, the reason Fee's so strong, is so good, is because she's fast, she does a lot of damage, and like she literally attacks like twice for every time someone else attacks once, and she does just as much, if not more damage than like anybody else in the game. So she's fucking amazing. Let's see. Okay, so first thing we do is we take her back to the camp, and we have to help heal her because she got poisoned by like these... You know what? I think she was attacked by mushrooms, not slimes. So, by mushrooms. So, of course, this involves alchemy shit. So, we find out about a cure jar from the blacksmith, but we don't know how to make it, so we got to go get some stuff. There's a merchant who has, like, the recipe, so we have to track him down, and he's, like, hanging out outside a fortress of the Empire. There's, like, Fort... It starts with a Z, like Zhangjiao or something like that. And then when we get over there, we see Galahad talking about some stuff with some of the guards and whatnot. And then Felt is like, he doesn't seem so bad, but then Noin obviously seems very like annoyed by our comment about Galahad not being that bad. So there's clearly some history there that we're starting to pick up on, because it just seems like way too personal. After we get the recipe for the cure jar, then we like make the cure jar, we send it back, and then we go and cure the girl, and then she's feeling a lot better, and then we talk to her a little bit more about going to the church and stuff, and she examines the Azoth again, and we learn that let's see, we talked about that. She decides to okay, she joins. And at this point, Noin leaves for some reason, but again, like that's fine because she's completely worthless. Like, she stays at the camp while we take Gray, and this is the first time, right? Like I said, there's like 3 times. Gray and Fee and I and Felt go, and so we're going, we're killing stuff, we're doing stuff, and at some point, Gray's like, I'm gonna look around and get like, you guys go get like a base camp set up. So Fee and Felt go on like a little date, and while they're at that date, they get interrupted by Chaos, who beats the shit out of them. Like, you're like fighting a normal battle, and then he just does an attack, and you automatically die. And then Gray pops in, and he's like, no, and then Chaos is like, oh, fuck this, I'm out of here, and so he leaves, and it's like, all right. And while Chaos is, before Gray saves us, he like is very demanding. Like, he really wants to know what the deal is with the Gardo. Where's the Gardo at? And we're like, I don't know what the frick you're talking about. Get the fuck out of here. Let's see. Before he can... Okay. Then after that, we all have a little chat about Azoth, and how there's 2 Azoths, and this other guy clearly has a Crimson Azoth and stuff. And we learn a little bit more. Meanwhile, Chaos is storming around, like the fucking... palace at the capital, and then Galahad and him get into like an argument about where were you, what are you doing, and he's like, what are you doing, you fucked up, and all this stuff. And this whole thing is watched over by the what's her fucking name? Pamela before she turned into a ghost. And so let's see. Now that Fee is better, let's see. Okay, so Fee got knocked pretty hard in this whole situation with Chaos. We have to wait for her to like heal up again, which literally takes no time. So we get up, we head to the church. Once we get there, we show the mother of the church, the Azoth, and she leads us to the secret back entrance. And there's a bunch of murals about like the Crimson Azoth and the separation of Eden up in the sky and all this stuff. And eventually she leads us to this back room where the Gardo is. And then we see like the hologram lady, and she's there again. Her name is like Uvaria. Uvaria, something like that. She talks about how the Gardo is part of the Eden project, and it's like this whole part of Eden and alchemy was all separated from the main world because of all the crazy nonsense that was going on to kind of keep people safe on the earth and up in the sky and whatnot. And the Gardo and all its like workshops maintain them as like a separate but equal kind of place. So we have to find all the workshops and help restore the parts of Eden, and that will get us back to Eden, and that's like our main goal. And then she tells us where like some of these like workshops are going to be, and Gray talks about maybe seeing one somewhere, and then we can like find the rest, and there might be a map up in Eden and all this stuff. And we jump over to VSA at this point so she can head to the fire shrine because restore it with restores fireman. Oh, hold on. Find the workshops parts of Eden. She tells us where the reconnoiter with the most. Okay, and at this point, Fia like officially joins, and it's great because she's peak character design, as I said. We also get a hint. Okay, so we get a hint about a workshop. So teleports in, and so we go to the first workshop, we restore it. This restores the Fire Mana Shrine. We then rest, talk about going to Grand, because that's where Gray remembers that there's a doorway that's just like the doorway here that led to the workshop here. And that's when we jump over to VSA and we head over to the Fire Shrine so we can make a pact with the Fire Mana, which is super simple. Sometimes you have to do like weird fucking quests for these people. We also learn about glow lamps, and so she gets access to the recipe and all this stuff so that she can make a glow lamp, and then she uses that to get into like this storage chamber in like the heart of Eden. And at this point she also runs into like this little girl from like the beginning again. Her name is Iris. Yes, exactly. Atelier Iris. And most likely at this point it's very clear that this is like a prequel sort of game to like the next game, which is like a very hot thing to do with Japanese RPGs around this time. And she joins VSA, which doesn't matter as much. Like they become like sisters, but joining doesn't mean anything because VSA doesn't like fight, and she doesn't give like bonuses to alchemy. She just kind of like exists for the story's sake, which is fine. And she's very important to the story, as we'll soon find out. But with the glow lamps, we're able to access this archive, and in there we're able to learn more about the Azoth and kind of what's going on. And then she gets like a map as well. Oh, and then this is where Poe starts showing up, and at first I thought he was like another wood mana, like Dower or Door, but he claims to be a gun mana. It's like, okay. And he does use like explosives and guns and stuff as like his repertoire. Like he has like a gun weapon, and then he has all his attacks are like explosive based. So I guess sure, why not? And he has a crush on VSA from the start, so he like follows her around and keeps trying to like confess his love to her or whatever. And there's like the whole shenanigans with like the love stuff with him and being like very verbose about that. Eventually, he kind of realizes that VSA is in love with Felt, and so he runs away. And he runs to like the gate, which for some reason opens up right when he's in there, and it teleports him down to like like a gate, like a workshop. And he's like, "Oh, look at this! I found this recipe. That's gonna be great. I'm gonna go show it to somebody." And then he walks out of like the gate, and he's like, "Oh, hey, who are you? What are you doing here?" And that's the last we hear of him for a while. Anyway, going back over to the archive, I kind of took a little tangent there with Poe, I know. So let's see, kind of to reiterate, VSA learns that the Crimson Azoth is all about destruction and was made to cause destruction, and that the Azoth was created to like fix the problem, right? And there's a mural of Lilith, or like a fresco or something, who's the creation mana, who's like the mother of all manas or whatever. And yeah, she finds the map. Map has a couple locations of workshops on it, and so she sends it to Felt. Felt and crew then check out the map and figure out where the workshops are, and then they head to the north to the Grand Plains, and there we find another workshop, but the door is broken and the workshop is totally destroyed. So we consider like normally when we get to these workshop doors, it'll be just Felt who teleports in with the Azoth, but this everyone just kind of meanders in. But we're able to fix it using the power of friendship or some shit, and so then we're still able to activate it. So we travel around some more, and we meet up with Noin, who's just like hanging out in like a fog plane for some reason, and we're like, hey, what's up, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, it's sent by Max to do some bullshit here. And we're like, okay, that's cool. So we travel around some more. Oh wait, I already said that. And that, oh no, so she was given some time off by Max, and so she figured she might as well join back up with us and help us out with whatever. So at this point we get a recipe for a bomb so that we can head, and this lets us like blow up some stuff. So there's like I said before at the beginning, there's like periodic areas that you have to use bombs to blow up, and there's like 2 levels of bombs. So at this bomb, we can blow up some stuff, get into a cave with another workshop. But first we run into like the Slime Brothers, and the Slime Brothers have like Poe captured. So we have to go get some fruit, and once we get that fruit, we can come back and rescue Poe. So we take care of all that. And then Poe joins up with us, and he learns that like we're the one that VSA like truly loves, and about Eden, and we talk more about that and stuff, and all that stuff. And then he joins the team. And again, I almost never use him. So in the game, when you have 3 characters you can fight at a time, and one of them dies, another character will just jump in, and I usually just use that character to like resurrect Fee or Gray or Felt, whoever died, and then like skirt them back out of there. So I did use these Noin and Poe, but I mean not really. After he joins, we get some time with Chaos. He's super upset that he can't find the Gardo, and he's like yelling at some of his troops. And then he talks to the Azoth about what to do next. We then bounce back over to Felt so that he can discuss with everybody about where the next workshop is and how we didn't find it in like this misplace. And so, wait, we find it? Oh no, we did find it in this like, and Felt goes to restore it as usual. Yeah, we did find it in this misplace. This unlocks the Aquieto, or the poison mana resting spot back in Eden. And then I go to try to deal with that, but there's like a whole side story with that we got to deal with VSA, so we'll get to that eventually. But essentially we have to learn, we go find the poison mana, and then she's like, I want you to translate this tablet that's sitting around. And so to translate that, we got to go talk to like Cruz and talk to the dark mana who's like in the library, and like read some books and like learn more language shit, and learn like, we have to get like a special alchemy recipe that will let us, it's called like Rainbow Cloth, and we put it over there, and then we can read it, and then she'll finally like fucking join us. Let's see. Gets coy about something, you just give it a debts. Yeah, and we talk about, so back with Felt, they talk about like what to do next. We talk about going to Grand, checking it out. There's some stuff about like Galahad that Noin gets like very coy about and all this stuff and doesn't really want to get into. And then with VSA, we get more stuff with Iris beginning to like, just from observing VSA, Iris is able to like figure out alchemy recipes and be able to like make stuff. She starts just like randomly making stuff for us. She gets like very excited about it and whatnot. Let's see, back Felt pass. Okay, so when Felt tries to get into the fort, or tries to get past like this area to get where we need, we find out that we need like a pass. And we get help about that from past Pamela, and Gray also mentions that we need to head east into this area that he remembers, and so we need her help to get like a pass so we can go and like deal with this fort thing, or with Grand. But we also need to head east once we get to Grand, because there's like this area that he remembers seeing like a workshop at and stuff. And then so once we're in Grand, we start talking around to people. I mean, this lady's running like a magic shop, and she's wearing like alchemist gear, like that crazy girl from like Iris 1, but also like Mary from, or Maria from the first game. Like that same kind of like, almost like Middle Eastern looking getup or whatever. And she's like, oh, hey, we're having problems. There's like a dragon who came into my town, my family's town, and it's like over there, and if we could get some help, like that'd be so amazing and stuff. And then Gray's like, dragon? What dragon? And it's like Alakazam or whatever, like the king of dragons. And this is the guy who like cursed Gray, I think. There was like some confusion, because at some point Gray says something about being cursed, and then it never gets brought up again. And then later on, he's like, oh, even though we killed the Dragon King, I'm not free from the curse. And I was like, oh, is that the guy who cursed you? I somehow missed that the first time. But anyway, so we head out there to take it, and first run into this. Oh yeah, and then also in Grand, we meet this like hot chick, and she wants to do like a makeover for Noin, but Noin's like, no, I don't need to do that. And we're like, okay. But then we meet this like fat slob who wants to meet like the most beautiful woman. He's like ugly bastard from like hentai, right? That's what he looks like. But he's like, oh, I want to meet the most beautiful woman alive, and if I can meet that, I'll give you this alchemy recipe that you have to like complete the game. We're like, okay. So then we take Noin back over to like the makeover lady, and we're like, make it happen. And she's like, joy. And so then we go wait with like the ugly bastard for her to show up, and she shows up, and she's hot as shit. I was like, damn, good job, lady. I wish we could just keep that look. Like fucking no joke. Like, I was like, damn. It's hot as shit. Great stuff, Gust. Keep it up. So we travel around a little bit more looking for more of these fucking workshops, and we run into some rocks that need vigor bombs, like I mentioned before. But we have to track that down later. First, we talk to the people in the village about I think it's called Clare Village, about the dragon, how it just showed up and started causing all these issues and whatnot. We then meet with the alchemist lady and or the magic shop lady and her grandmother about helping them out and stuff. And then afterwards we speak with Fee, and she mentions that a workshop being located nearby, but that we need to deal with the dragon first. We also find Gray just like meditating and whatnot. So we're like, hey man, what's going on? He talks about the dragon. The dragon like cursed him or something. He talks about fighting him before and training for it and all this stuff. And then the king of the dragons just like rolls into town, and we start fighting it, and he kicks the shit out of us. And then Fee like turns on her ultimate attack or whatever. She like zens out, beats the shit out of the dragon so it runs away, and it's like, holy shit, so what are we going to do? And obviously, as we discussed, the dragon is way too strong. So Noin mentions some old man that Gray like trained Gray or something, and he's like, I don't want to go there, but you know what, that's what we're gonna do. But first we go to, since we don't want to deal with the dragon first, the place that Fee mentioned is Niven's Cleft, like from the first game. We head there, we find some hunters talking about bird hunting or some old shit. And then also we find the workshop. It's a pretty quick dungeon, not gonna lie. This one restores the mana of Wind's home. Felt then inquires with the Azoth about the Azoth's creation. The Azoth mentions that both him and the Crimson One used to be human, and that the very life essence of the humanness of them powers the Azoth or whatever, and that his name used to be called like Eluismus or something. We bounce back over to Viese. She learns about Lilith some more. That's the creation mana, and also opens up the stone manas area so she can go ahead and make a pact with him. We can't yet. Sorry, I got like a weird emergency notification, so I should make sure it's still recording. But because we need a hook shop, but we'll get that in a little bit and deal with that. So it's time to go to the Dragon's Nest. This is where we meet the Dragon Keeper, who's like the old man who trained not just Gray, but Galahad. And here we learn that Gray and Galahad used to be like kind of homies, and they worked together and trained together. And this guy mentored both of them. And this guy runs like a battle arena portion of the game, essentially. We have to go through one round of battle arena-ness, which is just like you fight like 5 battles, I want to say. And then you get like an item. We run through this, we fight a bunch of dragons, and then Gray gets like some sort of dragon attack thing, which it just makes us better at fighting the dragon or whatnot. You know, it's like plot stuff. And then we can open up. I fuck around here for a little bit and like do some battle training, just get some items, you know, do a couple rounds or whatever. Once, so Gray gets once he has the Dragon Slayer ability, though, we can head through the Dragon Cave. This is like the what's it called? The lava level. The like, there's like an English term for this. Like in all these games, it's like, oh yeah, here's the ice level and here's the lava level and yada yada. And this time we get to the very end, get to the Dragon King, and he goes down like a little bitch. And so much like a little bitch that instead of like fighting us to the end, he runs off like a little gay faggot. And Gray is like, dope, that was awesome. And, you know, Fee and Felt are like, but he ran away. And it's like, doesn't matter, we saved the village. And we're like, hooray, so let's go back to the village. So we go back to the village so we can all celebrate and have a great time. Back in the town, we speak to Grandma. And she's very unperturbed that we didn't kill the dragon. She's like, whatever, you drove it off, that's good enough. And then her granddaughter's like, cool, I'm going to go back to Grand and open up the magic stock, so come talk to me next. And it's like, okay. But we also learned that there's like an Imperial camp nearby. when we leave the town, we get meanwhile, Chaos is standing by his unconscious sister, again, Rie, I think is her name. Then he heads out and talks to the Azoth about his power charging and having enough to do what they need to do, and then Chaos grabs him and they head off. Back over with Felt, we head to the magic shop and get animal cookie recipe, and this lets us talk to animals, specifically those little animals from the first game. I can't remember what they're called, the poo-poos or whatever. Little rabbit creatures that we could turn into. And then we head over to the Imperial camp. We're kind of checking that out, trying to figure out what to do, if we should attack or something. And then we overhear Galahad arguing with one of his soldiers about how Theodore wants to invade Grand, even though they're already kind of taxing Grand to leave them alone. And Galahad does not want to do that. And then we see one of the aforementioned little creatures run out of the camp, and that we hear that he stole a bunch of food. So we discuss this and how Galahad does not seem like such a bad guy, even though Noin gets perturbed when we say that. We discuss, we then go track down the creature, give it an animal cookie, or an animal cookie or something or whatever, so we can talk to it. And we find out that it stole its food because its home is deep inside the deep forest, which is a place we keep talking about avoiding because it's scary or something, and people get lost there all the time. And that the Imperials and all this war stuff or something has made it food hard to get, and so now they're trying to steal from the Imperial forces or whatever. And we talked to him about how we can help out if he can help us get through the woods. And the guy's yeah, that sounds good. And so he joins us, not joins us as in joins the team to fight, but leads us through the forest, and it unlocks the path so we can get through there. So we head over to the village and we're talking to all these creatures, and we talk to the elder. And then Fee's I got a plan about how we can solve both our problems, because we need to get through the Imperial barricade so we can get to the other side and get to the fort of Zwiti or something, and get to another town over there where we can get more information and get to the guy who can craft better bombs or whatever. But and then we can help these creatures get a bunch of food and steal food, so we're gonna double attack this place. So we wander, and we get Fee, literally Fee leaves the party, and then we walk out, and then we go to leave the little village, and then Fee and all the creatures are all right, let's go, we're ready. And I'm and then she rejoins the party. I say that, not that she stays behind, and then but there's literally a little thing at the bottom that pops up when characters leave or come back into your party or join your party for the first time, and it's Fee has left the party, and then you walk 2 screens away, and it's Fee has rejoined the party, and I'm was that really necessary? I guess. But it's someone was I have a great idea. Oh man. Anyway, so we execute our plan. We distract, and they distract, and we beat up some guards, and then the animals get all the food, but then a bunch of more guards show up, and Galahad was not fooled, and so we had to fight him as part of this whole thing. And then more guards show up, and we're oh shit, we can't get through here, there's too much stuff or whatever. And at this point we find out that we learned that Gray, we already knew about Gray and Galahad training together and stuff. We get some more of that, and then we also find out that the reason Noin's so weird about Galahad is because it's her dad. What? And that her mom died 12 years ago, I want to say, and then her dad became very invested in what's it called, his job, and so Noin has a lot of anger about that, right? She's got a lot of daddy issues, if you will, in that regard, and that's why she thinks so funny and stuff. Then let's see, so then we head back to we head out of there, and then we hang out in our camp, our little save point camp tent thingy. We talk about Galahad and Noin and her feelings about him and all that stuff. And then Felt has a flashback because Noin is really upset, and Felt's well, at least you have a dad. And then he has these flashbacks about him and Viese talking about how they're orphans and how they only have each other and all this stuff. And I was it's kind of an odd scene, but whatever. Meanwhile, back over with Galahad, he orders his men to return everything they pillaged from Grand and all the taxes and whatnot. And they're what about Theodore? And he's fuck that guy. And I'm yeah, fuck that guy. Then we hop over to Viese, who gets interrupted just doing alchemy stuff by Lutarius, the Dark Mana librarian lady, as Cruz has some information on the Azoth that he wants to share. So Viese heads over there. He questions Iris being there. He's who is this? I don't know anything about her. And she's I don't know, I thought she's just here, so she must have been here or whatever. And the whole thing seems kind of sketchy, but he's oh, okay, we'll deal with that later, you seem like a nice girl. He then he takes Viese and Iris over to the secret part of the library, because all these games have to have a library and then a secret library. And then we learn about Elismus, who is in the Azure Azoth, and then Proximus or something, Proaxius or something like that. And so Proaxius was like the greatest alchemist of all time, and Elismus was like his star apprentice who was like just as good, if not better than him. And then Proaxius wanted like more mana and more alchemy powers, and so he crafted like the Crimson Azoth to like bring destruction upon the world or something. And so then Elismus like sealed himself inside the Azure so they could like fight, and then they like fought to like a standstill, and it caused all this destruction. And this is like what eventually led to like the Gardo being created, and like the city of Eden being like raised up into the heavens and all that stuff. So we read a lot about all this kind of like crazy shit here. And we also in the hookshot recipe at this time, so awesome. So now we can go get the wind mana pact or whatever. So we do all that, and then we head back over to Felt, and then he discusses how the Imperial camp, like going through the Imperial camp is like not going to fly, and so we got to like find a way through the dark woods, even though it's all scary and stuff. And so we head over to the dark woods, and then we move our way through there. It's really not scary or hard to get through. And then we run into Mitsue again. And Mitsue is just like hanging out in here, like the buxom cat lady, and looking all hot and shit. And she talks about like the bomb guy, talks about her village and getting back to her village. And then Poe like really hits on her. And because, I don't know, Mitsue is like an easily gullible, naive child, she's like madly in love with Poe like immediately because he like said some nice words to her or whatever. And let's see, talks with the bomb guy. Oh, yeah, and then she mentions there's another workshop, but we got to get the bigger bomb to get past this other thing to get there. So we get past that, and then we head over to like Zweety Village. And then we run into Tolina, who's the Pamela from the past before she died. And we talk to her a little bit about stuff that's going on and about, you know, whatever crazy nonsense she's involved with. And we meet her like bodyguards, the slimes. And they get like super angry at us because we're like attacking Tolina, even though she's just like chatting with us friendly. And so we have to beat the shit out of them, and then she scolds them, and they all like wander off after she apologized. And at this point, we also learn that Tolina is the daughter of Theodore, and that obviously she's nothing like him. So we finally get to the city of Zweety, and we go to meet up with the bomb maker, but he's not around. His daughter's there, and she's like, oh yeah, he's off doing something. You'll have to come back later. And we're like, okie dokie. We then learn that Max and company are like currently, like as soon as we walk out of like talking to the daughter of the bomb maker guy, we hear some villagers talking about how the rebellion has like assaulted the Fort Jaeyung, or whatever it's supposed to be, Zaeyung. And they're like, oh shit, well if they're attacking the front, we can go help them by rushing into the back, and we can do something about it. So we go through there, and first we have to get through like a couple areas, like a little lake area and whatnot, and then we're able to get up into the back of this thing, and we're like, all right, we're just going to charge in through the back. So we charge into the back, we beat up a bunch of dudes, we run around, we like help some rebellion guys and search through this place and fight, and then we work our way up to the top floor eventually, where we fight the commander of the fort, who's just some like jabroni looking like soldier like everybody else. And once we beat up him, we're like, all right, cool, let's go see what else is going on. So we head all the way back down to like the front of the fort, where we find Max and Blacksmith Guy. And so we have like a nice chat with them about, oh, we won, we took over this fort, and this will be a new staging ground. This is where like the headquarters of our shit's going to be and whatnot. And at this point, we kind of go, meanwhile, Chaos has like arrived with some other guys, and they're like, we got to go assault this thing and take care of this thing. And then Chaos calls himself like the Lightning Sword or something, which I guess is his nickname. And he's like, I'll go take care of it. You guys don't worry about it. So because he's all charged up, I guess, and whatnot. And then, let's see. I mean, he also talks about Galahad and how Galahad was supposed to be here doing this thing, and how he's not doing this thing or something. He's kind of upset or whatever. So he comes in, and then as we're like walking back through the fort, we bump into him because he's like killing a bunch of dudes, and then it's like time to fight. And so we fight, but then he kind of beats the shit out of us. Happening here, if I can, oh no, he threatens us. We don't fight him just quite yet. So he threatens us and all this stuff, and then Max shows up, and he like attacks, and they said we get like a little fun cutscene. There's like 4 of these like cutscenes throughout the game, these like anime style cutscenes. And so they fight a little bit, and then Max uses Zack Claw or something like that, which is like the ultimate attack of like the Slythe dynasty, which is like the people who are like the rulers of this area, right? And so he does that, and then Chaos is like, ugh! And so he then uses his ultimate attack, which is some sort of like stone-causing attack, and it like starts turning Max into stone very slowly. And then we fight him. Let's see. Feed. Oh, okay. Yeah, we go to fight him, and he's like, I still have power to do whatever I want to you. And then Fee's like, I don't think so. And then she does Zack Claw, and it's like, wait, how can she do Zack Claw if it's only people who can do this thing? And she's used to before. So obviously she's a member of this dynasty as well, which we're going to talk about a lot here right after this moment. So we do that. We beat him, and then he like retreats. So we speak with Max, and we learn that he is the prince of the kingdom, and that he ran away when like the Empire took over like 12 years ago or whatever. And that Gray knew about this because he like rescued him. And got him out of there. And then we learned that Fee is actually Audrey, who is the princess. She's like the younger sister of Max. Oh my gosh. So she's the princess with her peak character design. And that she was taken by like her nursemaid or somebody, or her nanny, because she was so little, to the Altena church to be raised and taken care of. And that's how she also like inherently knows this maneuver, but she can't like officially do it until she gets like coronated or something. And so we're like, holy shit, and we're kind of dealing with all that, and Fee's like, I need to go talk to mother whatever at the Altena church. And we're like, all right, let's go, Audrey. And she's like, call me Fee, motherfucker. And we're like, okay. And so we go and find out that all this is true. She confirms everything. We then head back over to the fort, and we decide we need to go help Fee with her past stuff. So we're gonna go to the capital so she can get like more confirmation or something. But it's a good thing. Normally we couldn't get back into the capital, but we found like a visa from the commander at the top of the fort. And so we discuss all that, and it's like, all right, let's get inside, and then we can talk to some people and figure out actually getting into the palace, which is like a whole other matter. And so we get to the gate, and it's like, here you go, here's our visa. And the guy's like, that's funny. And we're like, oh, we're gonna have to fight these guys. And they're like, so you're a circus? Show us some circus shit. And we're like, what? And I was like, why would the captain of like a fort somewhere have a visa for a circus? Like, oh well, whatever. So we get this like very funny scene where everyone's doing like magic tricks or like juggling and stuff, and I was like, someone had a good time making this. Anyway, we go back to the bar lady, and we visit her and talk about the palace, and she's like, I don't know, we'll just figure it out or something. So we just wander around as we do sometimes, and when we go to the palace, Tolina's just like walks on up, and she's like, oh hey, you want to go in? We're like, yeah. And she's like, sure thing. And she's like, all right guys, I'm coming in, these are my friends. And so she brings us all in and takes us to the study, and inside the study there's a picture of a woman who looks exactly like Fee, and it must be her mother because she was like an adult. We also find some books about the Slaith family that confirm everything that we were told. And then we find another book that talks about the coronation some more, and about the Slaith family and whoever's coordinated. The coronation zone is like in the dark woods, and it's probably somehow related somewhat to a workshop or something. So everyone wins if we go over there and check it out. And then once she gets coronated, she can gain access to like these special maneuvers or whatnot. And you really want that, I guarantee it, because it is so fucking strong. It's ridiculous. And so with that, we head out. As we're heading out, we run into Galahad again, and Tolina comes in and like talks about it too, and then we all just kind of like, all right, cool, nice meeting you, bye. And Galahad like talks to Tolina about like why we're there and all this stuff, and she's like, YOLO. And then at some point, someone runs up and she's like, help, Theodore is being sexually harassing people down at the bar. And we're like, oh, fuck that guy. So we run over there, we rush to stop him, and he immediately takes like a small child hostage, which I don't know why small child's at a bar, but there you go. Galahad then shows up as he's like walking away, and he's like, what are you doing with that child? He's like, she's my hostage. And he's like, hostage? And he's like, yes, go kill those guys. And Galahad like punches Theodore in the face and like takes the child away and is like, hostages, you motherfucker. And then with all that, we're able to like, all right, cool, let's get out of here. Galahad took care of it. So we mosey on back over to the fort, which is now the headquarters of the rebellion. And the blacksmith guy is like, well, since she's the princess and we believe in monarchies here, she is now in charge of the rebellion. And she's like, I'm what? And it was like hot. Then the Azoth tells us that the workshop, we need to go to the workshop in the dark woods. Okay, yeah, the coronation thing, all that stuff, really. We talk about that. After that, we speak to Noin a little bit about her father and her conflicting feelings about him and her mother and all this stuff. And so we head back over to the dark woods, but before we do that, we head over to the bomb maker who's now around, and he wants another bomb to prove that we know enough to be able to use like the super bomb, which we have a bunch of those just lying around. So he gets super excited when we show him that. And then we have to like wait for him to like teach Felt the stuff or something. And while that's happening, we get a scene where Mitsue approaches Poe and, talk to him. And he's like talking out loud about how much he's in love with her and how he wants to marry her. And fill her full of baby, put a baby in her and all that stuff. And then she gets super excited. It's like, cool, I'll go back to my village. You got to come there, and then I'll get everything ready. And she runs off, and then Poe's like, huh, was someone there? And he goes back to like writing the letter that he was going to write for Viese. So we'll see more of that later. Finally, we get our new bomb, and we're able to blast our way over to the Cat Girl village, which is fucking awesome. And then we ask about the ruins and about the Dark Spring. And apparently, so there's this Dark Spring, which the Cat Girls use for like marriage ceremonies or to like test the groomsmen or something. So we can't get in there unless there's like a marriage happening. So it's very convenient that Poe is about to get married to Mitsue. And that's probably where the workshop is. But before we can do that, we're going to like figure out some other stuff. So we head over to this spring that all the cat people are talking about, and this is where we get told officially that like we are not allowed in there because this is only allowed for guys who are going in there to get the pigeon's blood because they're getting married. And so it's like, okay, well, that's unfortunate. Don't worry, we'll find a way to quickly, we'll quickly find a way to take care of that. But in the meantime, we're going to go to the coronation site, which is not right here, but is close by. So we head there. At the end of the dungeon, we fight this like fun little mech thing, and I guess that's a trial, because once we beat it, we get the crown of Slythe, or whatever, which is the proof that Fee's royal heritage, and it immediately unlocks like the Zac Claw, so now we can use it, which is one of the best skills in the game, and then we get like more advanced versions of it, or whatever. In fact, the Zac Claw might be the name of the best version, I can't remember, but there's like 3 levels to it. Anyway, so we go back to the cat village, and then at that point we find Mitsue waiting for her beloved Poe, and apparently she set up everything for the marriage, and so it's time to get married. And he is like, wait, non-disca? Like, what the fuck's happening here? And then everyone gets like, but she's super excited, and she talks about getting pigeon's blood and getting access to the spring and all that stuff. And so we're like, everyone's like, yeah, dude, you got to get married. We got to get this thing, and quit being an asshole and all this stuff. And so we head over to the spring, and Mitsue and the chief wait for us outside so that Poe can go, and we, as like the best man, as in Felt, can also go. So we head inside, find the pigeon's blood. In fact, there's 2 of them. And then we get to the workshop, head inside, and then once we're in there, we're able to repair it to unlock the Dark Mana's home. Afterwards, the Azoth and Felt talk about why Eden was created and why it was separated to protect everything, and we get like a lot of repeat comments about this stuff just from like different people's opinion. And so, you know, it was part of it was like to separate it from the Crimson Azoth and to protect everybody, to make sure that mana still existed in the world and whatnot. Back outside, we get the marriage ceremony. Mitsue is like, all right, Poe, like after the marriage ceremony, let's go back home and make babies and whatever. And he's like, whoa, good baby. Just, I got to go with my buddies and like save the world and whatnot. And she gets like super mad, but then he's finally able to convince her, and she relents. As long as he promises, as soon as we're done with saving the world, he'll come back. And he's like, okay, yeah, baby, of course. We then head over to Viese so we can jump in there and have a pact with the Dark Mana. And that involves a little like trickeration, because we go talk to the Dark Mana, and she is absolutely not. I do not want to make a pact with anybody ever again. So then we go talk to our girl, the librarian, Lutarius, who's also a Dark Mana, and she tells us like the really sad story about how the Dark Mana that we want to make a pact with, she was like abused by her alchemist, and he like treated her really poorly. And so we go back and we like chat with her and have like some psychotherapy or whatever, so that she finally makes a pact with us. All right, so then the next and I think last workshop is over in the desert area again. So if you remember all the way back when we first had Noin, and the chieftain of the village sent us back over there to like their holy site, and there was a door no one could get through. Well, now we have the key to that door, so we head all the way back there. We also visit Atelier, so we can hear about like the door again, just in case you fucking forgot. And so we head in there, we kill our way through that, and then we're able to unlock the Light Mana's home. And then at that point, the Azoth and Felt talk about Max getting turned to stone and stuff, and how it'd be nice if we could do something about that, and like the stone magic and all that stuff. And then the Azoth mentions that there's not really a defensive for that, so we just need to get good so that we can avoid being turned to stone, because we're getting close to the final battle. We then jump over to Viese so we can make it to Light Mana, pact with her, which is pretty straightforward. She just wants like a comet gem, which is something I've been able to create for like hours of gameplay at this point, to prove that we're worthy. Unfortunately, I used the last one making some other bullshit, so I had to go make that, and then we came back, and then we're worthy, so we get the Light Mana pack and all that stuff. And then we head back to Felton Crew, and they discuss how Eden is now fully restored, and that we should head back to the Altena Church and see what to do next at the Gardo. Meanwhile, Chaos and Galahad talk about how Chaos was injured by something, and how he's been out of commission, and how Galahad should just mind his own fucking business. Anyway, back with Felt. Felt, we arrive at the church. The Fee and the mother talk about her being a princess now, and how that changes nothing between them, and how the mother is like literally her mother because she like raised her. And then we head back to the Gardo. We talk to the robot lady, who I keep saying that, but we don't find out she's a robot lady till later. The hologram, about how everything's going and the return, and how Felt can like return to Eden now, as soon as it makes like excuse me, one more adjustment. But Felt mentions that he did promise Noin and everyone else that he would stick around and like help them out, and he doesn't want to like break his promise or something, so he's going to help restore Fee to being like the princess of all the land, and then after that he'll head back to Eden. So then Fee mentions, let's see his name, oh no, that was Felt. So we then head back over to VSA, and she's like reading the letter and is psyched about everything. But then Iris seems a little bit upset, and then she gets kind of sick. And so, well, first, so VSA is like, "You okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel that good." And so the VSA heads over to Cruz to report in on everything that's going on, and they talk about the restoration of Eden. Everyone's doing great, and we hear some other like manas and stuff talking about it. By the time we get back home, Iris is like super sick, and so we attend to her, and then Cruz shows up and works on some stuff too, and we're like, "Oh man, I think what we need is an elixir, but I don't know how to make that. Maybe if you can find it in the library." So then VSA heads over, finds the recipe for the library, and she also knocks over a book, and inside the book is a recipe which contains a recipe for the ruby prism. That's right, you remember the ruby prism back with the first game, yeah. So this is very important for the first game, and it's also going to be super important here coming up soon. So we go back, and VSA studies the recipe, and she realizes she cannot make the elixir. She needs some water from a spring in the life mana area. So we head over to the life mana area to make the pact, and then there's like some questions about Lilith and some other stuff doing with that, and so she goes to the warehouse to like look at the mural and think about that, and then there's like some banter a bit, and inside the Lilith mural is the life mana, which we make a pact with her, and that's one of the things we need for the elixir, and now we need the water. So we head back home, and I'm trying to remember exactly where we got the water. But anyway, we use some of our new shit, like our blown up stuff or whatever, and we eventually get the water. Then we head back home, and then Iris is like up and about, and we talk about taking care of her and her being healthy, and how like VSA and her are like sisters now, even though they're not related by blood, they're like closer than family could ever be. And so VSA finally gets Iris to like go lay down and be still. And then VSA and the Life Man have a conversation about how Iris has like a very strange aura, and that doesn't know exactly what that's all about. And then we are able to make the elixir, and then we give it to Iris, and then Iris gets like better immediately, but then she rests some more. And at that point, VSA has some like flashbacks that have to do with like different stuff that's going on and different commentary, including like the conversation with the life mana we like just had like 2 seconds ago. And she's starting to put together that something to do with Lilith and Iris, that there's some sort of connection there. But Iris is looking better, and VSA heads off to talk to Cruz. He's very proud of VSA for her hard work and everything she does sacrifice to make like the world a better place. On the way back home, VSA stops by the mural of Lilith once again because it's still bothering her. And then she thinks some more about Lilith and Iris being related or the same or like an essence or something, and then she like doesn't care about any of that stuff because Iris is going to be her sister forever, so it doesn't matter, they're still going to be together. Back home, Iris is doing great. So VSA like cries and hugs her and everything. And then we skip to, meanwhile, Theodore is looking over the Capitol from his balcony. He gets a report that the rebels and how they're like grown in size significantly, and he talks shit about Galahad and everything. Then we head back over to us, and we learn that the rebellion has grown substantially. I think it's like 3 to 4 times what it was, or 2 to 3. I can't remember. It's one of those two. And now is the best time to attack the Capitol. And so there's never going to be another good time like today. So we head in to like storm the Capitol, and at first it's like, let's sneak on in, and then Fee rolls up and is like, I am the princess of this land, and you will join me, step aside, or choose death. And the guards are like, what the fuck? And so we just kill a bunch of them, and then we fight, and we get to like the palace, and then Theodore from like up on his balcony is like yelling down at Fee, and she's yelling back. and then we bust in and like massacre all the troops. And this part of the game has like this fun mechanism where we get to like a certain area and it's like, oh, we need to gather more people to help like clear out like the courtyard or whatever. So then we have to go around and save people by getting into battles essentially. And then they'll be like, hey, go join the rest of the crew. And then once we gather enough people, we can get through that section. We have to do that twice, I think so. Let's see. Then something. Okay, then eventually we get to Theodore. Oh, no. Eventually we get to Galahad. Galahad and Felt and everyone gets into like a big argument about honor and like being true to the Emperor and all that stuff. And we learn that like, this is where we learn more about like how Galahad like abandoned Noin essentially after the mother died, because he like promised the mother that he would like do his thing and be like a good knight or something. And then we fight him and beat his ass. And then there's like a little bit more conversation about that. And then we pass through, let's see, troops, okay, yeah. And then that, and so it's just more like kind of minimal character development. I say minimal because it's like, I feel like not much happens with Galahad and Noin, as I've previously talked about in this video. And then it's just like everything just gets like swept under the rug, and by the end of the game, they're like best friends forever again, or like, you know, father and daughter, as it were. We finally get to the top, and there's Theodore, and he's like, oh, ho, 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 I have this, like, alchemical mech that I have, and so I'm going to sick it on you. And so we beat the shit out of that, and then Theodore's like, ruh-roh, and so he makes a break for it, but then he runs into Galahad, and Galahad's like, something, or no, Theodore's like, oh, you have to save me, you're a knight, and then Galahad's like, you already dismissed me from the knighthood, you stupid asshole, and then he, like, punches him in the face, or no, then Noin rolls up and, like, jump kicks the shit out of Theodore, and then Fee, who's the princess who's in charge of the rebellion, and now back in charge of her, like, entire kingdom, is like, lock him up in the lighthouse, and everyone's like, hooray, and we have a big celebration, and there's a party. And then the Azoth and Felt like to the side, there's like a cutscene and everything, like one of these anime cutscenes, and then the Azoth and Felt like off to the side have a conversation about how their battle's not done, how like the Crimson Azoth is the true enemy, and that they need to take care of that. And we need to deal with chaos. So then the next day, the group talks about what everyone's doing now. So Poe is going to go back to be with his wife. Fee's taking over the rulership and all that stuff. And then Noin mentions chilling out and making up with their dad and whatnot. And then Felt is like, all right, guys, I'm headed back to Eden. Goodbye. And then everyone says like their fond farewells and whatnot. And then Felt and the Azoth are like, all right, well, we're not doing that. We're going to head off to the Gardo and kind of see what's going on. Let's see. Yep, because he needs to face chaos all alone or something. So we head off and we get this kind of like funny scene on our way where Poe is like, hey man, can I come along with you? And then Mitsui like cracks him upside the head with like her frying pan, like, and then like drags him off and he's like, no. And then right after that, we run into like a sister from the Altena church and she's like, oh no, chaos attacked the church. And she's like, he's doing all sorts of shady stuff. Please help us. And so then we get, we race there, but then we get like, meanwhile, he turns like the mother into stone, and then he like kills the shit out of like the hologram lady robot, and then he like starts destroying the Gardo, and then we rush in at that point and we face him in a one-on-one battle. So first there's like some back and forth about all that, and then we beat the shit out of him, but then he takes the hologram like hostage, and then he turns Felt into stone with like all the power that the Crimson Azoth has like at its beck and call, so that he can there's no way for him to like come back or something. And then right before he completely turns into stone, the Azure Azoth destroys. He does something. He does some like super attack and like drain, because he doesn't destroy the Crimson Azoth, but his like crystal inside that Azure Azoth gets like destroyed, and it like really fucks Chaos up so that Chaos can't do anything at this point. He needs to like rest and recover for like weeks on end. And so he flees. We then head back up to Eden, and it's been like, quote unquote, like several weeks or like a week or something. And Visay starts to get worried because she hasn't gotten any letters or anything from Felt for a while. And so she heads over to the gate, and there's a message from the hologram that Felt needs her help. And so she freaks out, and she goes and talks to Cruz and then to Iris. And Iris has discovered some sort of alchemical capability to be able to turn like the stone back into human. And so she teaches it to Visay so that Visay can use it to help Felt. And so we take over as her, and then she teleports down to the regular world, into the desert, right? And then we kind of retrace the steps in the game. Like literally we pop into the original area and it's like we have nothing. But now we have all these alchemical like capabilities, so we're able to like really cruise through this part of the game and like And so we just we follow the steps. We go to Atelier village, ask people about Felt, if anyone's seen Felt, and then they're like, oh, check out the capital. There's a new queen and all that stuff. So we head over there, and then more people. We go to the bar where Felt was, like the bar lady, and then she talks about like talking to the queen because she knows who Felt is, but she hasn't seen him in a while. So the queen would probably know who that is, and the queen's obviously in the palace. So then we head over there and we get inside, and we're like walking around and whatnot. And then we see this purple-haired lady with like long hair with like peak character design. And she's like, please help me. These people are chasing me and I need to get away. And so then the maid comes running out and VSA is like, oh, she went the other direction. And then obviously Fee, but the girl is like, thanks, can you help me get out of here? And then VSA is like, sure, let's go. And so they run out. And then eventually they run into Gray. And Gray's like, the fuck are you doing, Fee? Like, she's like, I don't want to be here. I got stuff to do. And yada, yada, yada. We haven't heard something. And he's like, oh, something. And then it comes up that she's the queen. And VSA is like, oh, you have to help me. I'm looking for Felt. And she's like, wait, who are you? And it's like, I'm VSA. And it's like, oh, we all know who that is. What are you doing here? I thought he went back to Eden. We never showed up here. And it's like, oh no, you know what he probably went to? He probably went to the Gardo. And it's like, oh, let's go get him. So then again, for like the 45th time, we are joined by only Gray and V as a party members because they're like the main cast. While Noid and Po are just like whatever. And so then we continue. They continue to not have any idea how to get around the map, right? That doesn't happen until we like rescue Felt, obviously. So we have to like trace ourselves back over to like the Altina church. And so as we're doing that, we got to like go back up and redo the ship thing. But when we get to the ship area, there's Max, and so VSA at this point is like, oh, I can unstone him. Let me try that. And then she does. And I'm like, why is Max up there and not in the palace? I don't know. But that's where he's at. So that's what we do. And then somewhere around here, Noin also like rejoins, but again, I barely remember her being in the party most of the time, so I can honestly not tell you like when that was going on. But the funny thing is, we have like a similar scene. We have like a poetic scene here because we have we have a similar setup scene where at the beginning of the game, when Felt was like riding on the boat and Noin was talking to him, with VSA Noin talking to VSA now, and then realizing again for the fifth time that she has no chance to be with Felt because he's in love with VSA and VSA is in love with him, even though they like don't admit it or whatever. And finally, so we cross over that, we get to the rebel camp, and there we find the blacksmith again. He's psyched to see that Max is all better, and Max is like, I'm gonna stay here, you guys go take care and like do some more research on chaos and stuff, and then you guys go take care of whatever you gotta take care of. So then we continue onward to the church. We run into Tolima, who's Pamela, but in the past again, and they're like slime champions, and they're just like all hanging out in a cave or whatever. And then we get to the church, and then VSA cures the mother, and then we head into the Gardo, but we were unable to use like Iris's like magic mumbo jumbo to cure Felt because apparently like the Crimson Azoth used like all its power to stone him, while with other people it just used like a tiny little power, so it's too strong. And so VSA gets super upset about that, but then she gets like encouraged by her anime pro tag status to be like, I'm gonna figure this out. And so we go back to camp, like our little like like save point camp, and she does a lot of research and figures out we need like a certain kind of stalactite, which is in like this nearby cave, so that's convenient. So we head over there and we run into Po, and then Po like is tired of all the snoo he's getting with Mitsui, and so then he sees VSA and he's like, oh, my true love, blah 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 blah, and then she talks about Felt, and he realizes he's never gonna have a chance with VSA, so he's eventually gonna go back to Mitsui, don't worry, and stop being an asshole. But then he gets like really concerned here, and he like runs off to be sad or whatever, and then we're able to like do something to like blow something up so the stalagmites fall, and we get them, and then at the same time like Po finally rejoins the party, so now we got everybody except Felt coming back. So at this point, VSA is able to make like the stronger unstoning alchemy item, and so we're able to go back over and like save Felt, and then there's like a heartfelt reunion and everything, and then the mother and everybody talk about how the Gardo drive is like completely fucked at this point, and Felt like runs out of the church because like when Chaos like attacked the Gardo, it wasn't completely fucked, but like now it's completely fucked. And because of that, we have like another cutscene where, like the second to last cutscene, I think, where Felt runs outside of the church, and we see Eden like fall from the heavens into like this giant lake in like the middle of the grand area. And it doesn't fall like collapse and everyone dies and stuff. It just like slowly floats down. It falls. And at that point, we jump over to Chaos, and he's like super psyched about this. He's like, aha, finally, my plans are all come to a thing, whatever. And then Felt realizes that this was Chaos's plan all along, that, you know, he wanted to bring this down. And then he starts to put 2 and 2 together and realize Chaos is trying to help his sister, but like Proximus or whatever, the Azoth, the Crimson Azoth, is like, fuck your sister, this is what I really want. So he starts to figure that out. So we rush over to Eden while the Azoth talks about finding, So yeah, we rush over there, and then we get shots as we're moving. It keeps bouncing back to Chaos as he's like talking to the Crimson Azoth about capturing Lilith and getting all the power. And then he's going in there and he's like kind of rushing towards the palace so he can do whatever he needs to do there. And then we get a scene with like Cruz and Iris arguing with Chaos and the Crimson Azoth. And then the Crimson Azoth gets super excited because he recognizes Lilith is inside Iris or whatever. And so we run around, we talk to people in Eden and like take our sweet ass time to go rescue Cruz and Iris. But when we finally get to the temple, we see Iris running out, but then she gets like turned into a bubble, or she gets put in a bubble. And then Chaos comes out with the Crimson Azoth, and Chaos is like, da-da-da, and then Paraximus or whatever is like, fuck you, Chaos, and then he like completely shatters like the Azoth, it looks like, but then he pulls it out later. But it's like, the fuck. It's like the third time I thought that sword was destroyed. But he like takes over Chaos's body, and so like Praximus is like reborn as like the possessor of Chaos's body, and he's like laughing and talking about Lilith, and then he like flies up into the sky and like casts this like stone fog on like the whole of Eden, and so then everyone starts turning into stone, and we're like, ruh-roh. And so we like nope the fuck out of there, because otherwise we're gonna get toned to stone as well. And so we vamos all the way back to the palace in the capital and chat about everything that happened and try to game plan and how we can fight him now. Then the mother shows up and mentions the ruby prism, and if we can create a ruby prism, which thankfully VAC had like randomly found that in the library back in Eden before all this stoning occurred, that we can reconstruct the Azure Azoth, and once we do that, that's the only way we'll have enough power to defeat Praximus. All right, so how do we make it? And it's like the rest of the game at this point is just like finding alchemy ingredients, going through some more like kind of little like side stories, wrapping stuff up like and such, so that we can get the recipes and all the ingredients we need to craft that. And so we need stuff like the pigeon blood, which we already have, but we need some other stuff as well. And at this juncture too, we get the recipe for like the final key. So there's like white door key and black door key, and black door key is like now we have the black door key. So now we can do a bunch of stuff we couldn't do before. And then we use the palace as a base of operations, and so periodically if we get like stuck, we can come back here and there'll be people just like hanging out in the palace that will give us clues about what to do next. So that's kind of cool. But the first thing we do is, after wandering around a bit, is end up back over at the bomb village place where the guy gave us like I think it's called Terra, what do they call these, Terracraft maybe, or the Terra bomb. And we find out that this is actually the village where Chaos and Rie, his sister, are from, and that we learn like the sad story about how like the sister was like sick, and then Chaos was like trying to find a cure and he couldn't, so then they left and went to like this place down south where we can go check out, and that's probably where he got the Azoth from. We also find out that this village was like the last village to like maintain alchemy when like Eden was taken away, and so they have like a oral history or something about what happened 400 years ago. So he tells us about how like Praximus, you know, did all the shady shit and was like destroying the world and stuff, and then his like apprentice Eliamus, or however you pronounce his name, like fought against him, and they both turned themselves into like these Azoths, and it created this grand war, and then they got like sealed or whatever. And then we get some more information on other places that we need to go check out to get like the ingredients for the ruby prism. So we fight our way up this fucking mountain all the way down here, and we eventually get to Paraximus's workshop. We screw around with it for a bit, can't figure out what to do, and finally Noeen is like, well, there's nothing we can do, and she like leans back against the correct switch, right, like typical anime kind of stuff. And then we get a manual about the creation of the Crimson Azoth, and it's all about the destruction of the world and how it's used for destruction and stuff. And then Poe gets like mad or something and like jumps on the console, and then it brings up information about the Staff of Goguru, which is the whole point and the reason we're here in the first place, right, is to figure this shit out. So we get that, and then we get a liquid. It's like the Ares liquid or something, which is one of the components we need for the ruby prism and the Staff of Goguru. So we need two. So we got one. So now we got to find the other one. So at this point, it's like, all right, what other fucking endgame stuff do we got to do to get this like ball rolling? Okay, someone said something about the King of Dragons. All right, let's go track that guy down again. All right, so we go wander around to try to take care of this motherfucker for the final time or whatever. And as we do, we go back to like his little hidey ho in the volcano mountain, like the lava level. And inside there, we run into Galahad, and he wants to take care of the Dragon King once and for all. Because if you remember, Gray and him trained together as like dragon knights, specifically so they could like destroy evil dragons, which is all dragons as far as I'm concerned. So that's why he's here, right? And then him and Noin get into an argument because Galahad's here all by himself, and we all know that friendship is magic. And so without friends, he's not going to be able to take him out at all. And then he gets like butthurt about that and decides he's going to go do it. So we find him in battle with the Dragon King, getting his ass handed to him. And so we jump in there, we beat the shit out of the dragon, and he dies, right? And then we check on Galahad, and he's like, oh, I'm doing okay, I'm fine. And then we celebrate killing the menace once and for all. And then we get the dragon tongue, which is another one of these things, like a lot of this, where it's like, oh, I think there was dragon tongue in Atelier Maria. Right? I'm pretty sure there was. And it's always related to like end-game items like the elixir, the sorcerer's stone, or whatever. Philosopher's stone. Anyway, so then Noin and Galahad, they make up, sort of. I mean, they make up because in the end credit sequence, they're like living together, right? Not like that, you sickos. But I don't know, maybe. Then we head back to the palace to talk to some more about the Ruby Prism, things we need to do, all that stuff. All right, time to like fuck around some more. So at this point, I think I mentioned this before, but there's people in the palace, and you can just kind of go talk to them to get hints on what to do next. Like Pamela's like around, and other people will be like, "Oh, have you checked out this village yet?" or whatnot, and all that kind of stuff, and alchemy stuff and all that stuff. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So then we had to go to some of these locations that we went to before, and nothing really happened. But for the Staff of Grogu specifically, when we found the schematics for it, we also saw this mural, and we're like, oh, hey, that mural, I think I've seen that before. And that mural is, or it's a statue, it's not a mural, is in this like tower, which is the same tower that was like the first game, right? But this is like the past. And so we can go there, and then we have to fight like this mech alchemy creature, and then we get like the actual schematics that we need for like the actual recipe, right? And then we can head over to the Holy Ground, which is where we found what's his fuck? The bald shop owner who's in all these games, right? It's like Sid from Final Fantasy. Like he's literally in every one of these games. And then there's a tower, but we need like something to open this tower, and what we need is like the Twilight Mirror, and the Twilight Mirror obviously references the first game as well. It's a lot of references. This game it does the whole Final Fantasy thing, right? It's learned its lesson that Final Fantasy was popular, so we can be popular by doing similar things, and they're correct. So, and Dragon War. And so then we head back over to the mountain because I went one way to get to Praxis's like workshop, and I have to go a different way to find Grandma Alchemist, who was mentioned to us by like Bomb Alchemist guy back in the village and whatnot. And she's like, oh yes, and she tells us more about Chaos and his sister and the elixir and all this kind of stuff. And so then, okay, cool. So we get that. So we head back in the tower. We fight through that dungeon. We find Rie, who's Chaos's sister, who's dead. She's been dead like this whole time, and like nothing can help her. And then VSA's like, well, let's try giving her the elixir just in case, and we do, and then it's like, nope, she's dead. It's like, oh, sad. So then we just kind of wander around some more, and eventually we end up back at the Gardo, and there we talk to the robot lady, who at this point we don't know is a robot lady. This is where we find out officially. I mean, she's obviously a robot lady, or a construct, kind of like, what are their fucking names from the first game? Leela? Anyway, like the main character lady who Iris built in the first game, and then that other guy who was like the best fighter who you don't get for the second half of the game, which is kind of an asshole move if you ask my opinion. Gust. Good thing all your games are so fucking awesome. Like you could be forgiven for this like transaction or transgression. So the ASA is like, oh, I can fix her. We just gotta find schematics for it, and then I can use alchemy. She's like an alchemy construction. Everyone's like, oh wow, an alchemy construction, that's amazing. And there's a whole like kind of funny scene where it's like she's standing there and like Felt's like looking over her shoulder, and she's like, Felt, get out of here. And you're like, what did I do wrong? And she's like, I'm gonna undress her. And Felt's like, okay. And she's like, so turn the fuck around. And he's like, oh right, naked, got it. She's like She says she. I gotcha. Got it. Okay, so then we wander around some more. We find one of more of these like endgame doors, like the black doors, and there inside there is like another workshop, like the ones we use to revitalize Eden. And there we find the schematics for Uvaria. And so then we head back, and then Vise with the other ladies is able to like fix that, and then Poe wants to watch, and so we have to tie him up and drag him out with Gray, and then they finally come back in, and she's like, hooray, and she gives us like the second Ares liquid, which we need. And she tells us more about the purpose of the Gardo and such, and okay, once we have that, then I think we can construct everything. So then we go back, we construct the Grogu King, and then once we get that with the Dragon Tongue and everything else that we have, we finally able to get like the Ruby Prism. And then we meet up with Max and the mother of the church. And then Felt spends and then we have a conversation about what to do now. We got the Ruby Prism, and like, what are we going to do with it? It's like, we got to reconstruct the Azoth. How are we going to do that? Well, Felt's got to use like his natural talent for alchemy that he's been like not using, but he has been using because he's been constructing all these like alchemy weapons and stuff. And so he gets like his own private room, and then he does like gymnastics or whatever. we get like not a cutscene, like a montage, I would say more so, where finally he's like, ta-da, I did it. And then it comes back, and then the guy, we talk to everybody, and the Azoth speaks to everybody, and he's like, hello, I'm back, and this Ruby Prism's even better than the one I had before, and so I'm even stronger than before. And then we talk about finally we can go free the people of Eden, and how the Alamisus can like dismiss the fog so that we can get in there, and then we can use like the stone curing thing to cure everybody. And then the game fucking lies to me, because it's like, oh, congratulations, now that you've powered up Elismus, the Azure Azoth, now you can unlock even greater weapon things. And I was like, oh, dope, because all my guys have like maxed all their skills from all their weapons. They all have like their best weapons except for Poe, because Poe needs like a red crystal, and I never figured out how to get one of those. I'm sure if I just looked at a guide, but I was like, fuck it, this game's too easy to use a guide or to cheat, so I'm just gonna keep rolling with it. Anyway, but that doesn't matter. There's absolutely no way to like unlock better weapons or different weapons or anything. So I was like, okay, game, well, go fuck yourself. So we head back to Eden, and we dismiss the fog, and then we see Praximus looking down on us, and he's like laughing. He's like, oh, it doesn't matter what they do, I will kill them all, or whatever. And then we head in and start like dismissing stone on everybody. But then Mitsui shows up at some point to chat with her beau, about coming back, and he's like, yeah, baby girl, as soon as I get done here, we're gonna do that. And so we spend a decent amount of time just like unstoning everybody, but not everybody, because once I thought I unstoned everybody, I then went to like the librarian lady, the Dark Mana, and she was like, hey, once you unstone everybody, I'll give you a special item. And I was like, cool. And then I talked to her again, and she's like, once you unstone everybody, I'll get you a special item. And I was like, no, I'm not. I've unstoned everybody. I'm not gonna go look for like the one like tiny flame mana that is like hiding behind a tree that I forgot to unstone. Like that guy can fucking eat a dick, for as far as I'm concerned. So moving past that bullshit, we talk to Cruz, and we get caught up, we catch him up, everyone talks about what's been going on and everything, and it's like, alright, sounds good. And this is where we learned officially that Lilith is like not alive, but that her essence is still alive, and that it exists, but it exists inside Iris, right? So Lilith, the mana, does not exist because she got destroyed or something, or I don't know. And the whole reason Praximus was trying to come back to life and do this stuff so he could control the world, the whole reason he created the Azoth in the first place was to take Lilith's power and become like God, essentially, right? Because every Japanese role-playing game eventually evolves into a bunch of teenagers killing God. It's just fair. Anyway, so he's gonna like kill Iris so that he can absorb the Lilith power and become like God. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna have to go stop him, and so we do that. We move through the final dungeon. We eventually stop in a camp for a minute to chat with Elisimus about everything, all the shit he has to do, about him destroying himself and Praximus so that the world can heal and mana can be restored and stuff, because the Ruby Prisms have like too much mana and they're preventing the world from having mana or something. We learned that Elisimus was like an orphan, and that Praximus like adopted him and taught him alchemy and was like the father he never had, and that at first he was very like fatherly and very kind and very like a good steward over like alchemy and stuff. But then once he started getting a little bit of power, like, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely kind of mindset, he started becoming like he just wanted to get more power, and he wanted to control everything and just be like a big asshole, kind of like the bad guy from the last game. And so at this juncture, there's no saving him. He has to be destroyed. So we kill our way through this dungeon for a bit, and then we finally get to Palaxius. And then Iris is like, Viese, and Viese is like, Iris. And then Palaximus like talks a lot of shit, and then he does some sort of super attack, but Eliasmus like blocks it with his powered up like ruby prism powers. And then Palaximus like gets this radical like 9-sword wing shit that he like adopts, and he's like floating in space and all that stuff. And so we have a pretty good boss fight. And unlike the previous game's boss fight, which I was cheating and still had to like save scum, this one it's like it's tough, but like I was prepped, and I didn't feel like it was unfair, if you will. It was very much like of the Dark Souls variety of like, this boss is really tough, but like as long as I manage myself well and like don't have it on like 500 times speed, then I'm able to like think through things and like plan accordingly. And like I got down to like 1 character left alive, or 2 at some point in this boss battle, but I was still able to like heal up and like manage myself to get through on my first try. So that was pretty good. Felt pretty good. And it still took like 20 minutes to beat this guy, so it's a quality last boss. I gotta say, sometimes these last bosses in RPGs are kind of bullshit, but this one was good. So at this point, Chaos is freed, and demands that Felt use the crystal on the sword to destroy it. Eliasmus mentions that they both will die, but that's a good thing. And so it's okay. And so he does, and it blasts, and then we get like this montage of people seeing like mana raining down all over the earth, like Max and like the mother of the Altena church and stuff. They're like, wow, look at that. Look at all this mana. It feels so good. It's great. And then Iris is freed, and her and Viese like run up and give each other big hugs. And then we get like a cutscene, like a final anime cutscene. And so we see Gray training a bunch of troops and hanging out with Max and stuff. We see Poe and his wife, and she's like upset with him because I think my assumption is he's like giving her like a ring, and she's like very perturbed with his like behavior, and I think it's because of the loss of the pigeon blood, but I could just be making that up. We see Fee like overwhelmed with like paperwork and like managing the kingdom and being like the queen, even though Max is her older brother and should technically be the king, but I guess Fee took over because she actually passed the coronation ceremony or something. Anyway, and then we see Galahad just like cutting wood in the woods with his shirt off, like hell yeah, Galahad. Hell yeah, Gus. Tossing one out for the ladies. And then we see Noin inside like baking, and she, you know, as she's renowned, Emma from Nikkei Goddess of Victory, just terrible, absolutely terrible cook. But that's cute. And then we see Iris, and Iris is looking all pleased with herself. Oh wait, hold on. First we go to Chaos, and Chaos is just like, he's doing like the Magnus from Chrono Trigger, where he's just like standing on a cliff with like the wind blowing through his beautiful long hair and just looking like dour as shit, because like what is his life's purpose now that his sister is like officially dead and he like caused like almost the end of the world. All right. We never get that. We never find out, because none of these games are like actually connected to each other. Even they're all the Iris games, right? And it's like, okay, well, they all have a character named Iris that's somehow loosely involved, and I'm assuming a Ruby Prism. We'll find out when we get to Atelier, what is it, number 8, number 3 for Iris. And then finally we get like a cute little scene, and Iris is, it's like the scene from that Tom Cruise movie. What is it called? Show Me the Money, right? With the guy, Turk from Scrubs was in it too. It's not called Show Me the Money. I don't remember. Anyway, you can look it up. Look up Tom Cruise and whatever that guy's actor's name is. And then it's got like that ugly blonde lady that she was in all these romantic comedies back in the day. She's not ugly, but she's not attractive. She's like very average looking, which is, you know, like, I guess that's what women want, right? They want to be the average woman. They want to be the Bella Swan, if you will. But anyway, so where the fuck was I going? Oh yeah, it's like that scene where you have Iris, and she's like dangling from like 2 hands, and on one side's Felt, and one side's Viese, and everyone's laughing and smiling, and it's like a cute little ending, and that's it. That is the Atelier Iris Azoth of Destruction, I think is what the subtitle is. Number 2. And so, excellent game. I really enjoyed myself. It was super fun. It took a lot of stuff from the first Iris game and improved upon it. And then, yeah, we'll see how the third game handles all this stuff that's going on. But go ahead and like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys in 2 weeks for that. And next week, we're going to talk about 80 Days, which was a very shitty, woke-infested, I don't even know what to call it, like management sim that took me like an hour and a half to beat. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.